5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome back to Belgium. Formula One has passed the halfway point of the season. We're at Spa-Francorchamps for round 13 of the Formula One World Championship. We're in the Ardennes Forest at the longest track on the calendar. High speed, technically challenging, and over 7 kilometres long, with 19 corners, 10 to the left and 9 to the right, where you're reaching speeds of over 330 kilometres an hour. And it's a sprint weekend, the third of the year. We've had qualifying for the sprint, and ahead of us now, the sprint race starting in less than 5 minutes' time. Alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, I'm joined by the 1996 Formula One World Champion, Damon Hill. Damon, the sun is out, peeking through some white puffy clouds. We've got 15 laps of racing ahead of us, a bit of a mixed-up grid. I reckon we could be in for a fun one here.
We're going to be in for a fun one. I think we had a bit of a mixed-up grid, as you said. We've had a few people drop out. Lewis Hamilton didn't get through. He had a nasty experience going into the final corner and locked up and spun, so he didn't get through. And so there's some unlikely candidates up in the top 10, which has made it interesting, very interesting. But the people we get used to expecting to be up there, the trio of Lando and Oscar Piastri split by Max Verstappen, that's situation normal. So we've got the championship. Lando, for his championship hopes, has got a bit of a problem. He's got to get past Max again, but Oscar, can he hold on to it? Because this is a very difficult circuit to stay in the lead at, because they have such long straights, and we have it's possible to draft. So the first lap of the race, going into turn 5 at the top of the hill at Lecombe, is such a long way down, and you get the cars behind the leaders get such a massive draft. They all fan out, so there's typically quite a lot of chaos.
Oh, well, we like a bit of that, don't we? Indeed, the top 3 in the Drivers' Championship occupy the first 3 slots on the grid, but we've got some good results for the likes of the Haas drivers, who are up there inside the top 10. But we have had a couple of dropouts in the last few moments. Franco Colapinto will be starting from the pit lane, and let's bring in Andrew Benson at 5 Live's Race Centre. Andrew, it looks like Pierre Gasly as well won't be able to take part in this one.
Well, we don't know whether he won't be able to take part yet, but they're desperately trying to solve a water leak on that car. It's obviously not a good day for Alpine with both cars in the pit lane. Franco Colapinto's had his specification changed, that's why he's starting the race from the pit lane, but Gasly's participation is very much in doubt with that problem.
Absolutely. I'm just got this through from Alpine now. Pierre will not start today's Belgian Grand Prix sprint race from the grid due to a suspected water leak on his car. As you say, Andrew, the team will look to rectify the issue as soon as possible ahead of the start. Okay, so obviously still got Grand Prix qualifying to come later on this afternoon. Andrew, just in terms of what we're expecting over the course of these 15 laps, Oscar Piastri said pole is probably the worst position to start in round here.
Yeah, it's, as Damon was saying, the slipstream from La Source through Eau Rouge and up to Les Combes is really powerful, and it means that the guy on pole is really vulnerable to being passed on the first lap. Actually, Max Verstappen, who's second and therefore in the best place possibly to benefit from that, didn't think it was that relevant yesterday, because Piastri's advantage in qualifying was so big. In fact, I was leaving the track yesterday, and I was walking past Mark Webber, Oscar Piastri's manager, of course, and he said, "Best quali lap of the year, mate." That's my best Australian accent there.
I think it needs work.
Of course, Mark's biased, but I think there is a strong argument for that with the margins that Piastri had over Verstappen and Norris yesterday.
It was an almighty lap, wasn't it, Damon, from Oscar Piastri in sprint qualifying, 6/10 on his own teammate.
Yeah, I think, you have to factor in that the track was improving. I'm not taking anything away from Oscar's delivering of that lap. It was, the timing was right, and of course he was one of the last cars over the line, so of the main contenders. So what happens is, with a track that's not used much, the track does get better and better as more cars go over the racing line and leave hot rubber down. And in a qualifying session where they've not had much running, because it's a sprint weekend, so they literally had an hour in the morning and then straight into qualifying. So there's not the track evolution is what we call the evolution. So that's getting progressively better as rubber goes down, cleans up all the dust. That is significant, and so I wonder how much of that advantage that he had was down to just being the last guy over the line. Lando's lap was quite a bit earlier, and it does make a huge difference. If you've got 20 cars, imagine 20 cars going over the same bit of track, or even 10 cars, and the rubber is very hot. It's what they do in drag racing, is they do burnouts and they leave rubber. They leave it deliberately because it makes the track stickier. And then you've got rubber on rubber. And of course that the grip level goes up dramatically. So I'm not saying that is, that Oscar didn't do a great lap, because to do a lap round here of any sort, you have to be really on your game. So, but whether it's representative, the time difference is representative, or we certainly won't see that in the race. I'd be very surprised if Oscar is half a second a lap quicker than everyone else every lap of this 15-lap sprint.
Yeah, it'll be over in the blink of an eye. Such a long lap as this. It's why we get so few race laps. The Grand Prix itself on Sunday, only 44 laps, but it was mighty from Oscar Piastri yesterday. In doing so, he set a new lap record. Let's bring you up with how the championship standings look. Oscar Piastri does still hold on to the lead, but only by 8 points to his teammate Lando Norris. Max Verstappen a further 61 points behind in third. Then over in the constructors, it's McLaren, who have an almighty lead. Ferrari second, with Mercedes and Red Bull the top four. Thank you very much, Steve. Indeed, welcome to Spa. We're on the formation lap. There's some white clouds in the sky, but it is sunny and dry. We have 15 laps ahead of us. Let's just run you through how they line up, as Oscar Piastri is already making his way down to the final chicane. He starts on pole alongside Max Verstappen. Lando Norris is third, with the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc in fourth. Esteban Ocon is fifth, ahead of Sainz, Behrman. No Pierre Gasly. He would have been eighth, but a water leak has ruled him out of this one. There'll be a gap. Then it's Hadjar and Bortoleto, the top 10 with a mixed up order. Lawson is 11th, ahead of Tsunoda. Russell is down in 13th, ahead of Alonso and Stroll, with Albon in 16th, Hulkenberg 17th. Tough day yesterday for Lewis Hamilton, down in 18th, ahead of Kimi Antonelli, and one from the pit lane in terms of Franco Colapinto. It's a mixed up grid, Damon, 15 laps. It's going to be exciting. The top three in the Drivers' Championship occupying the top three in the grid for this one.
Absolutely. So the World Championship is at stake. It's only a sprint, they say, but of course points are awarded and every little point counts in this game. Championships, I don't know how many championships have actually been won and lost. One championship was lost by half a point. I think it was Niki Lauda. So, every point is crucial, and if they're dishing out points for a race, these guys are up for it.
8 points for the winner. Only the top 8 score points in this one, and as they line up on the grid throughout the next half hour or so, we'll bring you updates as we're into the second test for the British and Irish Lions against Australia in Melbourne. A win for them today would seal them the series. We'll also head to Old Trafford for updates of England against India in day 4 of the 4th test. But Oscar Piastri, who lines up on the right-hand side of the grid in pole position in his Papaya McLaren. It's a 137-metre run down to turn 1, a right-hander, the La Source hairpin. Then it's a straight run up through Eau Rouge and Radion, down that long Kemmel straight. 18 cars on the grid. Pierre Gasly won't start this one. His teammate will go from the pit lane. The green flag is being waved at the back of the pack. We're nearly ready for the third sprint of the year. It's eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go sprinting in Spa. It's a good start from Piastri, who hides that inside line. Max Verstappen forced to go the long way round. Norris having to defend from Charles Leclerc as well. Carlos Sainz in the Williams trying to get his way by Esteban Ocon in the Haas, who holds on to 5th place. But it's a good start. The top 3 as they were as we head up over the hill at Radion, the blind crest, as the cars jump over the hill. Now though, down that long Kemmel straight, Piastri has to move all the way to the right hand side. Verstappen pulls that alongside. They're side by side. Verstappen sweeps round the outside, through into the chicane. Verstappen takes the lead of the sprint. Piastri down to second.
Well, that was kind of on the cards, wasn't it? As I was explaining before, the long run up to Leclerc, the corner 5, just provides an opportunity to the guy in the draft. So that was Max Verstappen. Oscar, as you said, went right over to the right. There was lots of dust being flown up, so the people behind were getting lost in that. But Max moved over to the left and swept round. Brake later, he was on the racing line. And in defending, Oscar, I'm afraid, had nothing he could do, because Max had got, I think he might be running low downforce, but his car was slippery enough to get past and in the lead. Now he's in command of this race.
Yeah, Max Verstappen running a really skinny wing to try and give him that better straight line speed. And Oscar Piastri, talking yesterday, was almost expecting Max Verstappen to make that move on lap 1, down that long, over 700-metre Kemmel Straight. But we're not even at the end of lap 1 yet. They're coming into the bus stop chicane. Piastri will try and stick with him. It's Verstappen who leads Piastri. Norris, Leclerc, Ocon the top 5. Then comes Carlos Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoletto and Liam Lawson up inside the top 10. Down into the final chicane, George Russell, who's trying to claw his way up from 13th, having a look at the back of Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull. Russell has made a gain up to 12th. Lewis Hamilton hasn't made any gains. He started down in 18th. Actually, he has made one gain. He's up one place into 17th, ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Franco Colapinto from the pit lane has caught up to the back of the pack. 19 cars in this one.
Yeah, we're just watching a replay of the overtake, and of course we missed out that Charles Leclerc also got past Lando Norris in the same way that Max had got past Oscar. So now we have Lando in the draft of the Ferrari, and he's got a lot of work to do for his championship hopes.
Yeah, but DRS now activated. When you're within a second of the car in front, you'll be able to activate the rear wing opening to give you a boost in a straight line. You can only use that down the start-finish straight and along the Kemmel Straight. Verstappen, Piastri, Leclerc the top 3. Norris now down to 4th, but sticking with the Ferrari for now. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen hasn't been able to leave Oscar Piastri in the dust. They're making their way through the double apex left-hander of Pouhon now, down into the Piff Pass chicane. A quick right-left that flicks you out down a short straight. Then comes Stavolo, a right-hander, the first of 2 corners coming their way as they make their way now into the final chicane, kicking up a bit of dust. We've got old school gravel here. That's why a lot of people like this track. It punishes you if you run wide, but also it flicks up gravel onto the track, and that can prove detrimental for those behind.
Yeah, they used to have old school trees and no barriers. That was going back a long way. Fortunately, we don't have that anymore, but a lot of these corners now are easily flat. The faster corners like Blanchimont and Eau Rouge, Radion, are a little bit easier with these cars, the amount of downforce they have, but then they are going a lot faster. So you still need to concentrate, as Max seems to be controlling it as Oscar closes up as they go into Lassour's hairpin.
Norris is close behind Leclerc. Piastri is close behind Verstappen. Piastri's going to line this one up. He'll follow Max Verstappen up through Eau Rouge, up over the hill, over Radion, and he'll get the DRS down the Kemmel Straight. But Max Verstappen is mighty in a straight line, but so too is the McLaren. Has he done enough to try and get alongside him? No, he'll have to settle behind him for now as they reach the braking zone for the Lecombe chicane through the right-hander of Malmedy. Meanwhile, Lando Norris is still behind Charles Leclerc, but out through Malmedy. Charles Leclerc's Ferrari just has a bit of a twitch on the rear. That would have cost him a slight bit of time. He holds on to it for now. The top 4, Verstappen, Piastri, Leclerc, Lando Norris and Isaac Hadjar. This is the sound you can hear of the French rookie in the Racing Bulls. He's up into 8th spot, having started 9th, but rather inherited that because Pierre Gasly was supposed to be 8th, but he had a water leak, so didn't start this race. So he is just behind Oliver Behrman at the moment. Top 8 score points here. We're now getting a look, David, at the start again. So Piastri doing all he could to hold off Verstappen. In the end, it felt a little bit inevitable, and Norris, meanwhile, had his mirrors full of Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, and as we're watching the replay, we're watching Max, who let Oscar through, who got a better start round La Source, but of course he knew that all he had to do was get up behind Oscar going through Radion. We're watching the replay of this draft that he's in the hole in the air, so his car is accelerating better than the car in front, and he just sweeps past. He's also running this low level of wing. Now, he did this at Silverstone, and these two circuits are quite similar. And the problem with that is that tomorrow could be wet. Now, we saw what happened in Silverstone when it rained, and Max was not at an advantage, but he's having to gamble because he hasn't got the speed. The car has not got the speed of the McLarens through the corners, so he's running a low downforce setup, which works well here at Spa because it makes it very difficult for the guy behind to, even with the DRS, as we're watching again, Oscar getting in the draft.
Move for third place. Lando Norris gets back past Charles Leclerc down the Kemmel Straight into the braking zone with the aid of DRS. Norris, having been overtaken on lap 1 by Charles Leclerc, is now back inside the top 3. Piastri still behind Max Verstappen, though, not able to get through. Worth remembering about the setup differences that we have for the various cars on track. Of course, for a sprint weekend, after the sprint race, Parc Fermé reopens, so that allows all of the drivers to make adjustments to their car in time for Grand Prix qualifying later on today.
Yeah, well reminded me, Harry, there, because actually that's not the case if you have just normal qualifying. So he would have normally gone into, Max would have had to carry this setup, but they are able to make some changes for the race tomorrow, which is, but he's running this skinny wing. In any case, it makes it extremely difficult for Oscar to make a DRS situation work because they are much quicker through the middle section. This circuit's made up of effectively two long straights with a windy bit in the middle, a twisty bit in the middle where you need downforce, and you can be quick in the middle, but then you just can't get past the guy on the straight who's got lower downforce.
Well, as we end lap 4 and begin lap 5 of 15 here in Spa for the F1 sprint, the third of the year, Max Verstappen leads, but there's been an early score at the MCG. Let's head over to James Burridge. Very off tune. Continued updates from the second test of the British and Irish Lions against Australia coming your way across the course of the next 20 minutes while we are here on 5 Live for the Formula 1 sprint race. We'll also head over to Old Trafford and get you updates of day 4 of the fourth test, England against India 2. Meanwhile, back on track, lap 5 of 15 for the F1 sprint in Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. Round 13 of the Formula 1 Championship. We're past the halfway mark now. The grandstands are absolutely packed, and well, the man who races under a Dutch flag but was born in Belgium is currently leading the way. Max Verstappen able to keep Oscar Piastri at bay. 6/10 is the gap. Lando Norris having retaken third spot now from Charles Leclerc, but there's about 1.8 seconds back. Then it's Leclerc in fourth, Ocon fifth, sixth for Sainz. Behrman and Hadjar round out the point scorers. Only the top 8 get points in this one, ahead of Bortoletto and Liam Lawson, the top 10. Then it's Tsunoda. Russell has worked his way up one position to a 12th. Then comes Stroll, Alonso, Albon is 15th. Lewis Hamilton from 18th on the grid is now up to 16th ahead of Antonelli. Hulkenberg 18th. Colapinto from the pit lane 19th.
Oscar, how's the tyre doing?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay is how Oscar Piastri reports his medium tyres holding up. Pierre Gasly, by the way, who didn't start this race when everyone else did due to a water leak, is now back in this one. Pierre Gasly back in the Alpine, but he's 2 laps down, so very much Alpine using the remainder of the laps here as a testing session. Back onto the Kemmel Straight with DRS once more. Piastri closes up, but still can't find a way through on our leader, Max Verstappen, on lap 6 of 15. Let's head over to 5 Live's Race Centre. Andrew Benson, what more do you have for us?
Well, what's interesting at the moment, apart from a very close battle at the front, is how close the field is. There's no gap that's more than 2 seconds, apart from between Norris and Leclerc now, between any of the cars in the field. So they're basically nose to tail pretty much from front to back of the field. One of the things to watch out for in the battle for the front is that Piastri's managing to stay with Verstappen very easily, run quite close behind him. He's obviously using the McLaren's pace in the middle sector to be able to do that. what usually happens as races go on is that the Red Bull uses its tyres more than the McLaren, and that's going to be even more the case you would expect, because the Red Bull seems to be running less wing than the McLaren for this event. So just keep an eye on Piastri. If he can stay this close, it may be that as Verstappen's tyres wear out, he can mount more of a challenge in these in the last few laps.
And we know, David, one of the good things about the McLaren all season long is they've been able to keep their tyre wear in check, particularly their rear tyres. And through the bus stop chicane that seals off the lap, the right-hander followed by the left that spits you back out onto the start-finish straight, Piastri closing up nicely.
Yeah, and of course Oscar will have looked in his mirrors and seen that Lando is behind him and closing gradually, and of course that places him under more pressure. The imperative is for Oscar to stay ahead of Lando for the title, and of course he then has to get past Max Verstappen, which he's struggling to do.
It wasn't the best exit for Piastri out of La Source, but over the hill at Radion, he's got a good jump. Once again, Piastri will get the aid of the drag reduction system, the rear wing flapping open, but he's still not able to find a way past Max Verstappen on lap 7 of 15. Verstappen leads by half a second to Piastri, then comes Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is fourth, and Esteban Ocon the top 5. Let's send you over to Old Trafford for an update. Day 4 of the 4th test, England against India. Ellie Oldroyd. Meanwhile, over in Melbourne, Australia have extended their lead. James Burridge. Thanks, James. Right, back here in Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps, in the F1 sprint, lap 7 of 15. Lewis Hamilton, who is all the way down in 16th position, has just been on the radio saying he's got no rears left, presume referring to his rear tyres and managing the degradation that's on them. He's in that dirty air as well, Damon. It won't be a very happy Lewis Hamilton after this sprint. Yeah,
it was more, I've got no rears already, exclamation mark, actually. So he's really upset that his back end, the back end of the car, the important part of the car, is not really holding on. So he's probably suffering a lot from being stuck so close in traffic, as Andrew was mentioning, that the gaps are tiny between all the cars. So there's quite a lot of traffic. The front the first three now are actually stretching ahead, with Lando Norris having put in the fastest lap and closing the gap gradually now to within a second of Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, Lando Norris is closing in here on this fight for the sprint win. Max Verstappen's got a hold of it for the time being, that advantage in the straight line, keeping Oscar Piastri in check down the Kemmel straight, and then before you know it, they have to brake for the Lecombe chicane out through Malmedy, downhill through the right-hander of Brussels, then the left-hander of the Jackie X curve that leads you down towards the double apex, downhill left-hander of Pouon, where the top 3 currently make their way through now. The next stop for them will be the Pif Paf chicane, or Lefania, however you want to call it, and Piastri, though, is really close. This is where the McLaren is strong, through the corners. A little twitch on the front end, though, coming through the chicane. The next possible overtaking point for Oscar Piastri now, if he can get a good exit out of Stavolo, which I have to say looked fairly even between Piastri and Verstappen. You might want to try and dive down the inside of the final bus stop chicane, but really you want to do it on the Kemmel straight, because you don't want to give the car you've just overtaken the DRS to power their way back past.
Yeah, and of course this is now where it becomes a mind game, because Oscar is in his head, he's thinking, I need to get past Max, I have to get past him, I do not want Lando all over the back of me and having to defend, because that will give Max a chance to get away, and also I don't want to come behind Lando. So you know, the championship is a factor, even if you're racing in second place or third place.
Further down the field, the two Haas drivers running well. Esteban Ocon in 5th, the first time a Haas has run inside the top 5 during any kind of race. Bem in 7th, both looking to score points right now. The top 8 get points. Here we go again, though. Down the Kemmel straight we run once more, and this is as close as Piastri's looked for a little while, but the braking zone comes too soon, and now Lando Norris is within a second of the pair, fighting for the lead here. It's Verstappen against Piastri against Norris, with Charles Leclerc a little further adrift in 4th.
We're just watching some onboard footage of Lewis Hamilton. He looked pretty crestfallen in the interviews after qualifying yesterday. So, he's not having a great time with that Ferrari at the moment. Down there in 16th place and struggling to make progress.
Yeah, he's got Kimi Antonelli right behind him. Hulkenberg, Colapinto and Gasly, the last runners in this race. Gasly 2 laps down, having had a water leak issue that prevented him from taking the start of this race. Just outside of the points, only the top 8 score this is Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. He's having a nice fight with Liam Lawson, who occupies the top 10. George Russell, who didn't have a qualifying that he would have liked, started this sprint down in 13th. He's made one position up in 12th, but it does feel like they're all getting a little bit stuck, as Andrew was saying earlier. Really tight field here. That midfield really running nose to tail. Tough to find the advantage to get alongside, and that is what Oscar Piastri is finding difficult, and even more so now. Piastri's going to have to look in his mirrors more, because his teammate Lando Norris, who is only 8 championship points behind him, coming into this weekend, has DRS activated and will now be very much in this fight as the Red Bull and the 2 McLarens follow line astern up through Eau Rouge, over the top of the hill at Raidillon. Down the Kemmel Straight we go, 770 metres long, over 330 kilometres an hour top speed as they rush their way down. Verstappen holds on to the lead, Piastri second, Norris now very much in the hunt for this one.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is, of course, that Oscar also gets DRS behind Max. He closed up on Max, but of course Lando couldn't close up on Oscar because Oscar had DRS too, quite as much as he'd like to, but definitely the gap is closing. And now watching on one screen, we're watching 3 cars and very much there's about 4 car lengths between each one of them, so it's down through the middle sector. This is where all the dirty air will affect the tyres, but the McLarens are better at looking after their tyres than Max is. But then if you factor in that Max is in clean air, it may be that it evens itself out, and he's a slippery car going down the straight.
Lando Norris was quicker than Piastri and Max Verstappen last lap around, but now he's right up behind the rear wing of his teammate Oscar Piastri. That's going to prove a little trickier to keep up. These 3 continues the battle for the lead of the F1 sprint. There's been a wicket in the cricket though. Let's head over to Old Trafford. Ellie Oldroyd. Thanks, Ellie. Back into La Source, turn 1 at Spa-Francorchamps. It's Verstappen, Piastri and Norris, the top 3 all together, and even Charles Leclerc is just lurking in the background. Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar, the top 8, they're your point scorers, as once again we go down the Kemmel Straight. This feels like it's closer than ever for Oscar Piastri. Verstappen feeling the need to move right, then move left. Piastri picks the racing line. Verstappen has to defend in the middle of the track. Verstappen under pressure, but the braking zone comes in time. Verstappen holds on for the lead.
Can't brake on the peak. Understood.
Just as we heard that radio, I was waiting for the radio from Oscar Piastri, who is going to say that Max is weaving down the straight, because he definitely went one way and then the other, and you're only supposed to change line once. So we'll just listen out for that. Maybe he hasn't got time to get on the radio. We only have 4 laps left, and he's got his hands full just keeping the attack up on Max and also defending against Lando right behind him.
No mandatory pit stops in an F1 sprint race because it is so short. We're on lap 11 of 15 here in Belgium. On the eastern side of Belgium, white puffy clouds above us, blue sky and the sunshine giving us wonderful conditions. We're expecting some changeable weather throughout the rest of the weekend, but right now it is an out-and-out battle for the 3rd sprint of the year. Max Verstappen has the advantage and maintains it coming out of the final chicane, but 2 more DRS zones to navigate for him once more. Down to La Source, no issues there. It will be once more down the Kemmel Straight.
It looked like Lando was closing, and he's definitely right up behind, maybe only a car length behind Oscar as they went through La Source, and of course he will get the DRS as he comes out. He just needs to get a clean run through Radion, and now Oscar has got his hands full because he's not as close as he was to Max as we go up the Kemmel Straight.
Less points up for grabs in an F1 sprint, but for Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, every point will matter in a championship as tight as this. Norris was close, but lost a little bit of ground coming out through Radion. Indeed, Piastri was able to close more up to Max Verstappen, but they're still top three.
Oscar's battery's mid-level.
So that's Lando Norris being told Oscar's battery is mid-level. The battery, the energy system, trying to give them a little bit of help. Let's head back to the MCG. James Burridge. Lap 12 of 15 of the F1 sprint here in Belgium, and these top three, I think they might be a bit frustrated coming the checkered flag, Damon Hill.
Yeah, we should just explain to listeners, you know, the battery, it's not the battery you use to start the car and operate the lights. It's actually very important because it delivers power. It delivers quite a lot of horsepower boost. So if you're running out of battery charge, you're running out of ability to accelerate the car. And I think that looks like Lando has saved himself a bit. We saw a graphic up earlier where he had 60% of battery charge available to him, whereas Oscar was down to 30. So what you can't do, the way to charge up the battery is you use up some they call clipping on the straight, so use the turbocharge to actually charge up the battery, and also under braking. There's not much braking here at Spa, but now we're watching Lando right up behind him, so Lando's got the opportunity to deploy some of that battery power, and if Oscar deploys it at 2, then he's going to be getting down to very close to nothing.
But interesting that McLaren feeding that information on the other car to Norris. Once again, the team allowing their drivers to fight with everything on the table. Here we go. Norris peeks out to the side of Oscar Piastri just to have a little look down the Kemmel Straight, but he is not close enough. We go again then, out through the right-hander of Malmedy, just 0.6 of a second, less than that now, separating Max Verstappen, who leads, from Oscar Piastri. Then it's Lando Norris. Leclerc is in no man's land, down in 4th. Then comes Esteban Ocon in 5th. Esteban Ocon has got Carlos Sainz for company a second back. Then comes Behrman and Hadjar, the top 8, with Bortoletto and Lawson, the top 10. Sonoda is 11th, ahead of George Russell. Then comes Stroll in 13th. Fernando Alonso has got the company of Alex Albon, who is trying to find a way past the Spanish racer. And then comes Lewis Hamilton in a lowly 16th place, ahead of Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes. Nico Hulkenberg from the podium highs of Silverstone, running down in 18th right now in his Sauber. Then comes Franco Colapinto, who started from the pit lane in the Alpine, and Alpine not having the Saturday to start off that they would have wanted. Pierre Gasly with a water leak failed to start this race, has now rejoined it, but is 2 laps down, very much using this as a bit of a testing session for the French team. Lap 13 of 15 here. It's tight in the midfield, and it remains competitive at the top 3 as well for the fight for this F1 sprint win.
Yeah, I saw in the corner there of the screen we were watching, it looked like Lando ran a little bit wide. He may have lost a bit of time. I'm just looking at the gap. It's still well within the second, so they've got 3 cars fighting for the lead within the second, but we've only got 1 lap left to do this. So, well, they've got two roughly racing laps, so it's going to be very, very difficult. It seems to be that they've got to stasis where Max has worked out how he can stay ahead.
Yeah, they are running out of time. Max Verstappen, the man who has 11 sprint race wins to his name. No other driver on the grid has more than 2. Max Verstappen looking to add to his tally to make it 12 on the penultimate lap here, lap 14 of 15. They've already navigated the Kemmel Straight. It hasn't worked out for Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris. Through the downhill off-camber right-hander of Brussels. That leads you through the quick left-hand flick of the Jackie X curve. Downhill we race now into the double apex left-hander of Pouon. Incredibly high speeds reached here as they try and battle flat out. The sun glints off the Red Bull, being chased by the papaya of the McLarens of Piastri and Norris, still holding on to 2nd and 3rd. And I wonder, you know, it's a sprint race. How hard do you really push? You don't try anything too idiotic, I suppose, in the final laps, because of course we go qualifying for the Grand Prix in just a couple of hours' time.
Yeah, I don't think they're thinking about qualifying right now. I think they've got their hands full, their minds full of what is going on in front of them. And of course, Oscar is ahead of Lando. That is crucial for him. They both want to be world champion. Oscar's got the advantage. He knows all he has got to do is stay ahead of Lando, and he's increased that gap between them. So, yeah, they are focusing. We're watching Max go very wide on the exit of the last corner there, trying to put the power down. So it could be that Oscar's got an opportunity coming into the last run now, down after La Source, as he's getting very close indeed behind Max, as they'll come down towards Rayon Eau Rouge, and he'll get the DRS as they come out of the top.
A thrilling game of cat and mouse being played out at over 300 kilometers an hour around one of the most historic tracks in Formula One, one of the longest tracks in Formula One. Max Verstappen so far has had the edge on the two McLarens, but here comes Oscar Piastri down the Kemmel Straight with DRS. No, the braking zone once again appears just a few meters earlier than the Australian who leads the championship would like it to. Is that the last opportunity gone for the McLaren of Piastri? He can't give up yet, though. He still has to keep strong because his teammate Lando Norris is right behind him. 8 points separating them in the championship as we came into this race. That will increase by 1 point if they finish as they stand right now. But for Max Verstappen, it's looking pretty for the Dutchman so far.
Yeah, he's basically stolen the advantage. He got the toe past Oscar, and of course now he's using his absolute amazing skill, of course, and also his slippery car. He's having to probably run with less downforce on that car than the McLarens are generating, and he's managed to take advantage of it, and the speed on the straight has just kept the McLarens behind him.
Just the flat-out left-hander of Blanchimont left to go. Then the bus stop chicane. That really is the last possible overtaking point, but Piastri has fallen back slightly. They will see the checkered flag. The sunshine is out in Belgium this morning. We've kicked off proceedings with a thrilling race. In the end, it will go to Max Verstappen, who takes the third sprint of the year. Verstappen takes the Belgium sprint just ahead of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. The top three. Piastri holds on to the championship lead and extends it slightly, but for Max Verstappen, that will be a boost. That will be confidence coming into this weekend after a lot of talk off the track around his future and the future of Red Bull. Well, for new team boss Laurent Mekies, that is one way to go and make a debut.
Yeah, we should also say this is the first time that Red Bull have raced without Christian Horner being on the pit wall, so that is a new era we're into here, because Red Bull carry on their winning ways with Max Verstappen, the undeniable talent that he is, in sort of his home race, as well as Zandvoort, of course.
Okay, mate, nice job. Well managed.
Nice, very well done.
That was really well managed, Max. Well done.
Yeah, well done there. Great job with the gaps and the battery. It's really nice. Well done, guys.
So obviously getting used to the new banter on the radio. We'll have to get used to it too, but Max is the voice that is the continuity here at Red Bull, and done an amazing, another astonishing job. This team is such a race team. Max is such a racer. You know, they never count themselves out, and they've established that they can stay ahead at least for 15 laps.
Well done, Oscar. P2, just not quite enough straight line speed, I think, to get Verstappen.
Yeah, just didn't have enough, unfortunately. So, well done.
Yeah, so the point to make, Harry, is of course that tomorrow they've got pit stops. It could be wet, so there's a longer race, 44 laps rather than 15, and whether or not Red Bull could have stayed ahead of McLaren for 44 laps, I have to say that's doubtful. I don't think they know that.
No, a much longer race tomorrow. There is the possibility of weather, but for Max Verstappen, he'll take it for now.
Max. Very, very impressive defense. Very, very well controlled. You didn't leave anything on the table there. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, Laurent. That was a good start. I enjoyed that.
And that was the first time we've heard the voice of the new team boss at Red Bull, the Frenchman Laurent Mekies, who has replaced Christian Horner, speaking to Max Verstappen, who also has another new voice in his ear in the form of Simon Rennie, who has already been in his ear once this year, replacing Jean-Pierre Lambiase, who is at home this weekend. But round of applause from the packed-out grandstands for the Dutchman, who was born in Belgium, who has kicked things off well here with his first sprint win of the season and his 12th in total. Nobody else has more than 2 wins. If there's one thing Max Verstappen likes, it's a sprint race, and he certainly knows how to perform well in them. Verstappen takes the sprint win. Piastri is second, ahead of Lando Norris, with Leclerc, Ocon, Sainz, Behrman and Isaac Hadjar, the top 8 in this one. Top 8 score points, but we go qualifying a little later on today for the Grand Prix, so we reset and go again. So for now, we'll ask you to join us later, but we'll hand you back to Steve Crossman and the gang.